it's time to sit back and relax with your favorite drink and listen. Okay, this is going to sound strange, but tonight's stories are based around a subject that's very close to my heart. It's going to sound ridiculous when you've seen the title of the video, but as a man of science who holds religion somewhere, at arm's length, I do nevertheless think that there could be something there. As a man of science, I don't completely rule out religion, the role of a god, or the opposite, which is what tonight's collection of stories is about. So, when I say this is a subject close to my heart, I mean that in the sense of, somebody who's always searching for the answers, for the truth. Who we are, where is our place in the universe, is there a heavenly being, and is there some dude down below doing the opposite? So, without further ado, I think it's time for us to listen to our collection of 3 stunning stories this evening, starting off with The Night I Met Satan by Master of Monsters. We aren't supposed to talk about our patients for confidentiality reasons, but I feel so compelled to write this, if anything, because I really believe it could be true. Now, I no longer work at this facility. I quit 2 years ago because of personal reasons. I was taking care of the mentally ill, and I felt I was becoming incapable of doing so, and I've since changed professions. Now, what I'm about to tell you is true, and it has haunted me every waking day since it happened. I was a nurse, a good one at that, in a local psychiatric hospital. It's only a year before I found myself promoted, or maybe demoted, to the secure unit at the hospital. God, it was a nightmarish place to work, to tell you the truth. It wasn't like the other units, where the people still had some shreds of sanity. No, most of the people in that unit were so far gone that they seemed to be more animal than human. Walking down the halls, their screams, and sometimes growls, could become deafening. I was almost tempted to bring an MP3 player to work with me, but the idea of someone creeping up behind me without hearing them, that was what stopped me. The nights were the worst. It's not like the movies where the lights would be completely turned off, but they were dimmed. And the noises, though not as loud, were far more disturbing. It was a constant murmuring and humming that droned on throughout the night. My last night there was the most interesting and the most unforgettable. Sometimes patients would get out of their rooms. We'd have to force or usher them back in, but this was the first night that she got out. The security guard had wandered off, probably sulking because I'd turned down his advances for the 100th time, and I was alone. I didn't see her at first. Gosh, she was so tiny and frail, and quiet. I'm not sure how long she stood there at the secured office, but something caused me to look up, and that's when I saw her. She just stood there, on the other side of the glass. She wasn't even looking at me. Instead, she was staring down at her feet. Her shaggy brown hair hung over her face, and her gown barely hung from her skeletal shoulders. We'll call her Lucy, though that wasn't the name on her papers. Well, Lucy was different from the others. She wasn't as violent, but she had the most violent history out of all of them. When I'd pass her room at night, I'd sometimes look in. She'd just be sitting there on her bed with her back to the wall, staring. I'm not sure if she ever slept or even moved from that position. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest. She was so inconspicuous, but she terrified me. As frightened as I was, I didn't call for help. God, it was the oddest sensation I've ever had. But, well, I felt bad for her. There was something there beyond my fear which made me have compassion for her. Sometimes security could be overly rough, and I didn't want her to be hurt or punished. So against my better judgment, I got up, walked to the office door, unlocked it, and stepped out. She didn't move as I slowly approached her. It wasn't until I placed a hand on her shoulder that she finally looked up at me. Through her messy hair, I could see that she had eyes of the loveliest shade of blue I'd ever seen. Looking into them was like looking into the ocean. I stared for a while, locked on her eyes until something began to well up inside of me. In those blue depths there was something lurking. Not dangerous, but painful. God, it made my chest ache, like my very heart was about to explode. I looked away and murmured to her that she needed to go back to her room. My door was open, she whispered in a tiny voice. I didn't open it. I thought it may have been just my perception of her, but it sounded like she was crying. There were no tears in her eyes, but the tone was there. I could feel the tightening in my chest grow and grow. I needed to get away from this girl. I didn't know why, but she was heartbreaking just to be around. I placed my other hand on her other shoulder and steered her around, walking her toward the long hallway where the rooms were located. Her door was closed and locked, which I thought to be odd. I momentarily let go of her to shift through my keys, looking for the one for the rooms. Well, they all had the same lock. I only took a moment to find it, but it felt much longer. God, I just wanted to get the door open, shove her inside, and get away. My discomfort was rising steadily with each second I stood there with her. So, have you ever had someone close to you die? You know, the moment just before you receive the phone call, telling you that the person is dead. You already know what the call will be about, even though you try telling yourself that it's not true. You try not answering at first, but you know you'll have to, and prolonging it only makes it worse. Oh, this is how I felt. There was something about this girl that gave me that feeling. Irrationally, I felt that if I allowed her to speak or even stay near me, she was going to tell me something. Something horrible. Her door clicked open, and she stepped inside. I felt this hope of relief, but, well, I knew it wasn't going to come. I want to tell you something, she whispered. Well, I wanted to close the door, turn around and walk away, but my feet wouldn't move. Instead, I found myself stepping inside with her and closing the door behind me. It was insane. I was terrified, but I felt like I wanted to be in there. No, it felt like something was making me want to be in there with her. She walked over to her bed and crawled up on it, taking her usual position. I stayed near the door. Whatever was making me have these compulsions wasn't going to make me get any closer to her. Do you know what my name is? She asked in that same whispered, crying tone. My mouth opened to tell her, but tell her what? I didn't want to give her the name she had. No, I wanted to tell her another name. I didn't know why I wanted to call her that. There was no reason to call her that, but that name began ringing in my ears. That isn't my name, she hissed, breaking that soft tone. I felt a bolt of electricity travel up my spine, making my hair stand on end. I felt horrified that she knew what I was thinking. I felt ashamed. I felt guilty. My original name was Lucifer. That was my name before you took it from me. That was my name before you did what you did to me. I was the bright morning star. That's who I was. That's who I am. That is my actual name, not the filth you now label me with, she whispered. There was a biting edge to her voice, though it was soft again and she still sounded like she was weeping. I looked down at my feet. At the time, my mind had no choice but to acknowledge her as though she was speaking the truth. Or looking back, I can't tell you why, but I believed every word she said. She was Lucifer. I'd somehow harmed her. These weren't accusations, it was the truth, and I knew in my heart and soul that it was. Why is Jesus praised as a god for hanging on a tree and then having his whore of a mother raise him from the dead? She shouted out bitterly. Do you think he really did any of that with his own power? Do you really think that something so insignificant should make him so great? Are there not countless others that lived far more excruciating lives and died far more excruciating deaths? I felt like a child speaking to an enraged adult, even though I was older than her. I shuffled my feet uncomfortably, thought about what to say to her. My mind wasn't processing. No, it felt like my spirit was the one thinking of an answer. When I opened my mouth to reply to her, I didn't know what I was going to say, but I did feel like I thought about it. He lived a sinless life, I stammered, because we aren't able to. He took our sins and he... She was staring at me now. Her eyes appeared almost black, like a storm was moving in behind them. Oh, this was the moment I was dreading. This was the moment, the reason why I wanted to get away from her. I could feel it building. Why do you think he designates what is sin and what is not sin? Who do you think controls our flesh? Who do you think was the original author of physical sin? Who makes you lust, murder, molest, steal, rape? The whore you call a father, the whore you call a god, the whore who placed her son on the throne. That whore is the reason for all this pain in the world. If it's her desire, can the whore make it so that her stupid son doesn't commit any physical sin? Can she even designate what is or what is not a sin? My heart was hammering in my chest. I felt like I was about to collapse, but I remained perfectly still. She was asking me questions, but I knew if I tried to answer, it would only make it worse. I'm going to tell you a story, she said almost bluntly. Something was changing about her. She no longer seemed to be crying. If anything, she just seemed to be annoyed by having to speak with me. Once upon a time, there were 2 children born. Identical twins, a boy and a girl. The boy was lavish with attention and praise, while the girl was cast aside and ignored. She could do everything her brother could do, but that didn't matter to their mother. Her son was the most precious thing in existence. In truth, she lusted after him. She hated the daughter simply because she was there, and because the son showed affection for her. I guess these emotions were somewhat new to her, but she knew they were wrong. Before her children were born, she'd been alone. The idea of right and wrong was still something new to her. If anything, she was just as much a child as her children. Oh, the mother knew what she was doing, but she didn't stop. She was the original. If she was capable of such thoughts, such evil, then her children would undoubtedly be the same. It would have been better for the daughter if the mother had concealed her thoughts, but she knew that by doing so, she would be concealing the truth. There would also be the temptation of allowing the daughter to believe something was wrong with her, that she was as horrid as the mother told her she was. You see, she isn't as perfect as she says she is. When there's nothing but yourself, how do you know what's good and evil? There has to be others. When others are brought into the situation, then you can see how you interact with them, and what hurts you or them. She's capable of irrational hatred, jealousy, lust, love, everything we are. The only thing that's different is that she found herself in a position of authority, and because of that authority, she had to hold herself to higher standards. There was no being nice to the daughter, at least not genuinely. She knew that if she wasn't in the higher position she was in, then she may have gone further than just the light bullying. Then there was also the son to think about. She loved him more than anything, and she didn't want to ruin his image of her. I think, just for a moment, she even considered getting rid of the daughter and locking the son away with just herself for company. He would be miserable, though, with just her. There'd need to be more. More company meant more happiness, right? And so when they say that the world was created for the son, this is what they really mean, even though they don't even realize what they're saying. But the damage was already done. She was cruel to the daughter, before she could even stop herself. She lied about her, and the daughter knew. If there's one person you can't tell a convincing lie to, it'd be the person you're lying about. It's like trying to convince a person that their eyes are green when they know they are blue. Well, it started getting worse and worse. The mother had to maintain her lies, even though she knew how much it was hurting the daughter. Because if she didn't, then the son would know that she wasn't perfect. So she came up with a plan that would tie into others, and then others, and then others. But because this is my story, I'll only tell you one part of the plan. Well, the plan was to carry out everything that her wicked mind had concocted. She would do everything she wanted to the daughter. She wouldn't hold herself back, and she would force herself to press forward even in times where she felt remorse. She was going to make an example of the daughter. She was going to show her what could happen if one allows negative thoughts to go too far. First, there was no denying that it brought her joy to think of everything she was going to do to her. She hated her so much that the idea of one day not hating her made her ill. She wanted to hate her forever. She knew that was a general plan. If you hurt someone long enough, you'll eventually see yourself to be the monster that you are, and you'll want to change. You'll eventually repent. Maybe. She carried out her plans immediately, gleefully. There was no visible change. She was already pitiless to the daughter, so it's not like anything was new, but her attacks began to grow in frequency and verbosity. The lies she told the daughter were so absurd at times, but the son still believed her. The only thing he knew about truth was what the mother told him. He did pity her, because she did seem so miserable, and out of that pity he tried to improve her. Well, he did wonder why she was so bad, why she was the way Mother said she was. The mother easily came up with an excuse. She said that the materials she used to make the son were refined and pure, but the materials used to make the daughter were corrupted, something she didn't foresee. She said that it was regrettable, but maybe with time the daughter could change. With time she could become better. They just needed to work on her some more. Oh, this was a lie, one of the best lies she ever told. You see, in the beginning the mother wasn't female at all. The mother was male. He created himself, a perfect replica of who he was, and he gave this replica what he'd always wanted, the perfect child. He wanted, more than anything, to be a father. In his mind, at the time, there was no concept of gender or how two natures can be at work in one person. He would be the father, the son would be his spouse, and they would care for their baby. As he was writing all this out, before they were created, he sat and wondered what traits he would want to give this child. The best trait and the most prominent would have to be love, and that is what she was. She was love. It was her constant motivation, just to love and to be loved and cared for. It didn't work how he'd planned, though. When he created the son, he realized how obsessed he was with him, how possessive he was of him. This is where he became aware of his more dominant feminine side. This is where he became a she. It enraged her to see how the son would croon over the daughter, made her boil with jealousy. But these were attributes that the daughter rarely showed, even when the mother would mock her. She still loved her and wanted her love. She knew where she'd gone wrong. She'd made the daughter too unrealistic, too perfect. She wasn't like the mother or the son, and she hated her for that. She began to think of her as a puppet, something not as real as they were, and all she wanted to do was shove her in a closet and forget all about her. And it was then that she decided that no other children would come from the template used for the daughter. She quite literally broke the mold after she made her. No, any other children would come from the son. She knew the son had flaws, and flaws meant that they would be more understanding of her, more relatable to her. Honestly, the idea of being surrounded by anything resembling her daughter made her livid. That's not what the mother told the son, though. No, when the subject of other children was brought up, the mother hummed in disapproval. She said that it was her original plan for the daughter and son to have the next children, but because of the daughter's unfortunate behavior, she didn't see how that would be possible. She said that she still wasn't good enough. She needed to be better if she were ever to have children of her own. It was something the daughter did want, though, so she tried. She stopped resisting the mother and son as much, but it was too much to handle. She still knew that nothing was wrong with her, and it was impossible to fix something that's not there. She wanted her own children, but she was already losing her sanity. The girl finally rebelled against the son, even though she loved him. It broke her heart for him to treat her the way he did, to believe the mother and not her. He grew angry and he called her jealous of the mother. Prideful is what they called her, and she became known for her pride, but that wasn't the truth. Oh, she wandered the earth, looking for anything to keep her company, anything to take her mind off the son and the mother. She found animals to be the best companions, and so the mother made her look like one. Then, 2 more children were born, again a boy and a girl. This time the girl was praised and doted on, receiving everything the first daughter had so desperately wanted. The son even loved her more, saying that she was far more beautiful than she ever really was. But in secret, the second daughter would come to the first. She would be cruel to her, viciously tearing her apart. She was just like the mother, and that was the point. As hard as she was, the mother was more at ease with her. She even genuinely thought the second daughter was in the right. The first daughter would defend herself, sometimes just barely harming her to get away. But that isn't what the second daughter would say. No, the second daughter would say that she was the one that was attacked, and she would cry to the 2 sons. And they grew to hate her because of the lies. Everything beautiful about the second daughter was a lie, but she was loved because of the lies. Yet everything truly beautiful about the first daughter went unnoticed. They hated her existence. It was nothing but pain. Then one day, the mother found her and approached her. She was being kind for once, and the daughter was lulled by her gentle words. As malicious as she was to her, she still wanted her love. That's all she'd ever wanted. The mother asked her why she was so sad, and the daughter replied that she wanted to be loved. She broke down crying, saying that she didn't understand why she was so hated, why she was treated the way she was. Somewhere along the line, some part of her began to wonder if they were right, that there really was something wrong with her. Well, the mother used her insecurity to lure her back. She promised that she'd be loved, but she, in return, had to promise to be a good girl, better than she'd been. The mother said that the second son would love her and that she wouldn't be so sad anymore. So she followed the mother, and she did try her hardest to be better, even though she still didn't know what she was trying to fix about herself. She became obsessed with becoming perfect, being everything the mother told her she wanted. She needed to be more loving, she needed to be kind, she needed to be just like the second daughter. She wasn't allowed to defend herself anymore. She had to agree when she was told she was being bad, and then she would have to allow the second daughter to come and help fix her. It became exhausting and infuriating, but there was one thing she did look forward to. When she was ready, when she was perfect enough, then the second son would love her. She would finally be loved. Well, he wasn't very nice to her. If anything, he was just as bad as her sister, but she still loved him, just with the promise that he would one day love her in return. Well, he didn't know about it, not yet, and she was admittedly frightened of the day when he'd find out. She was scared that she still wouldn't be good enough for him, something the second sister, who did know about it, would often echo and reinforce. Then the day finally came. She was good enough for him, and he was going to be told of the arrangement. It didn't go how the first daughter had dreamed. He was angry. He was beyond angry. He called her an animal, stupid, ugly, worthless, and he spit in her face. He said he loved the second daughter, and he would never love anyone but her. But the second daughter was to be with the first son, The son also loved her, and the mother said that this was how it was to be. The second son said that it wasn't right, that the first was far more favored, and that's why he was getting the prettier bride. The mother said that he didn't have a choice, that this was how she had planned it. And the second son flew into a rage and said he would rather die than be with the first daughter. But there was no death there. There was no getting away, not really. He did his best, though, and he fled. The first son and the second daughter, they blamed the first. They said that if she'd tried harder, then it would have been different. If she'd made herself more attractive, then he wouldn't have left. And she believed them. Well, she was heartbroken and weary. She didn't stray far. There just wasn't a point anymore. She found a tree and she sat beneath it and closed her eyes. Part of her died there in her misery, and it never came back. She thought that maybe she'd be able to will herself to not exist anymore, if she tried hard enough, but it never worked. Her mind had already been worn down by the mother, then some more by the son, and then the second daughter. And then the second son leaving. That's all it took to push her to breaking point, but not all the way over. They would still come to torment her, but she wasn't going to stand for it anymore. She used to hold herself back, but not anymore. She snapped. Well, the mother warned the son and daughter not to approach her, to stay away from her. She told them that she had become dangerous, but the second daughter, the whore, didn't listen. It was her own fault for coming back, just to bully her one more time. The little bitch could see that she was miserable, that she was losing her mind, but she still prodded and poked at her. She whispered her arrogant lies into her ear. She even tempted the son to come and join in, which he did, and that was enough to finally finish the first daughter off. The light once in her died underneath that tree, and the son and daughter knew that something was different. There was a new madness in her eyes. There was bitter hatred in her words, but there was also a quickness and intelligence to them. They'd used to call her stupid, but the truth was that she'd often censor herself because, as much as she hated them, she still didn't want to hurt them, not really. But she didn't care anymore. For the first time, she fought back and allowed herself to spew every dark thought that had ever crossed her mind. Every argument they brought, every accusation, every word they spoke, she threw it right back at them, and they couldn't dispute her. It wasn't enough to just tear them apart. Oh no, there was also the mother. The son and daughter followed her, pleading with her to calm down. They didn't want their shame to be exposed. They knew now that what they'd been doing was wrong. In his mind, the son blamed the second daughter, and in the mind of the second daughter, she blamed the first. She wrapped herself in her own delusions, telling herself that it was the fault of the first daughter, simply because she'd existed and was there for her to torment. When the first daughter reached the mother, the second had already resorted to what she did best, crying and throwing false accusations. The son said nothing. He knew what she was saying wasn't true, but he still loved her, and to expose her, he would have also exposed himself. He even began to cover for his beloved, defending her, supplementing her stories, justifying her. It didn't matter, though. It hurt, but a heart that has just been shattered, it still somewhat feels. But the pain wasn't going to stop the first daughter. She accused the mother, attacked her, and fought everything she said. The mother, in turn, brought in the son and the daughter, asking for them to tell the truth. Both of them lied, and the mother said she believed them. It drove the first daughter further into insanity. She stood there, night and day, screaming at the top of her lungs because of the injustice of it all. The mother knew everything. She would therefore have to know that the son and daughter were lying, which meant that, in her mind, the mother unjustly hated her so much that she would prefer the lies to the truth. Other children were born. Thousands, then millions. Of course, they could hear the screaming. Everything the first daughter would say was audible to anyone who would listen. It was okay at first. She was just a nuisance, something that would eventually give up and go away. But then some started to believe her screams. They could see the truth in everything she was saying because they were also experiencing the same prejudice. Even the second son heard her, bringing him back. He still didn't love her, or maybe he did now, but at least he believed her. And soon enough of the children believed her, and there was a revolt. There was hope for the first daughter now. Not that anything would change because she had already seen how wicked the mother could be. No, there was hope that she would finally get what she wanted, to not exist. She thought that if she created enough of a problem, then the mother would have no other choice than to get rid of her. And this idea made her fight even harder. The son stepped up to oppose her. He forgot about his own sins against her. He simply ignored the truth in everything she said. It was his own pride that didn't allow him to admit his guilt. In the end, he won. He held the majority, and the majority always wins in a vote. But he still needed to get rid of the first daughter. She knew too much. I suggested, with the help of the second daughter, that the first be given what she wanted, but only after a punishment of some kind. She needed to be punished for what she had done. As for those who followed her, those she had grown to actually love and care about, he decreed that they would share in her punishment, but that they could return if they so desired, but only after they acknowledged him and only him as king. That wasn't enough, though. His troops weren't as strong or as righteous as he was. There were too many whose convictions weren't as passionate as his. They needed to be more like him. They needed to learn obedience. They needed to be fixed. Those that didn't learn their lesson of obedience to him and the mother, well, they would share the same fate as the first daughter. There would be a test, a competition, complete with the most elaborate arena ever constructed. The prize would be an eternity of servitude to the king. Those that fought harder in the original war, they would have advantages. The competition wouldn't be as difficult for them because they'd already proven themselves more worthy. Those that didn't fight as hard, he would make it even harder on them. There would be rules in this arena. The mother would write them. The point of the game was to follow the rules as best you could. And so, it started. Over time, the first son began to see that he had been too strict, so the mother gave him an idea. She told him to go into the arena and share what he'd learned, and then show his ultimate love in a way that the other children would understand. To die for them. But a king cannot die. Oh no, a king still needs to be strong. And so his death was not permanent. He came back. The rules changed as he changed. First, it was about obedience, but as he saw how hurt the other children were, he began to have more compassion with them. He learned that love was more important than obedience, and that love is needed to truly make a flower grow. Oh, it's changed a lot since the very beginning, but it's not something that's noticed when one is in the arena. She broke off from her story and began suddenly to laugh maniacally. It startled me because before that I'd been entranced by what she was telling me. It was the story of Adam and Eve, the story of Cain and Abel, the story of Lilith and Adam, all wrapped into one. It sounded like the insane ramblings of a madwoman, but somehow I knew that there was truth in everything she was saying. It was like I was remembering something from long ago, and I just now recalled it with her help. I knew it was the meaning for this existence. She stopped laughing a little and looked at me again. This time there were really tears in her eyes as she spoke. Do you want to know what the first daughter was screaming? Do you want to know what the first son was fighting for? She wanted everyone to be loved equally. She didn't like that some children were more loved than others. She didn't like that they were treated badly because they weren't as beautiful as some. The son, he believed that it was right to hurt them. He said that children should be obedient, and if not, then they were better off not existing. As for the punishment of Satan and the other children, who is to blame for all the evil in the world? What story would be complete without a bad guy? If a mother is drowning and torturing her children but still desires for them to love her, doesn't she say that it's someone else doing it? You need some kind of opposition, right? Who better to use than those that are already detested by the majority? Now, let me ask you something. In all the books, all the religions, all the movies, demons are always portrayed as evil. How did they come to be that way? If you have a bunch of spiritual corpses lying about, why not string them up as puppets and continue the war you'd already been fighting? You labeled us evil, so she made us evil. You blamed us for all the trouble, so we became to blame. You like to tell yourselves that you're fighting for love, but in the beginning, you were fighting for obedience, for glory. It's only now, in the last few thousand years, that you're beginning to see that glory isn't everything you thought it would be. Now you see why we were so willing to die for what we died for. Now you understand the screams of the madwoman. I could feel my gut begin to twist, and I felt like vomiting. It wasn't because of what she was saying. No, that would be something that I would have to digest later. It was because I could feel what she was about to say next. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it would be hard to hear. I'd been a devout Christian all my life, and everything she was saying should have seemed blasphemous, but, once again, I knew it was true. It resonated with my very soul. "Have you ever read Revelation?" she asked me softly. I nodded. "I want you to read it again. This time when you read it, I want you to read it from the perspective that it has already happened. The Antichrist, the one that people live in such terror of, the one they anticipate, he already came, and you followed him into hell." My heart literally stopped. The true Messiah, the one carrying the real message. You voted and you damned her and those that followed her. You persecuted them, spiritually tortured them, and then damned them, because the Antichrist promised you glory. Now you're here. You're here to see where you went wrong and to learn the lesson I tried to teach you at the beginning. To love. I felt like falling to my knees. I felt like screaming. I felt like begging for forgiveness, but whatever had hold of me just made me stand there and silently suffer in the influx of emotion I was feeling. It was like her insanity was reaching out and taking a hold of me. I just wanted it to end. I wanted, more than ever, just to get away from her. But I knew I had one last thing to ask. "Why are you here?" I croaked. At that she smirked. A sick, sort of twisted smirk that darkened her features and took away the innocent look that usually graced her face. From the beginning, the very beginning, I was a tool to separate the wheat from the chaff. The mother purposefully drove me mad so I would rebel. She opposed me and allowed her son to threaten death to make it all more realistic. She wanted to see who'd be willing to follow me into the abyss, because those that did truly believed in what they were fighting for. I envy them, because I am, still, only a tool. Don't misunderstand me, the mother truly did hate me. She still hates me, actually. But she can't dispute me. Everything she did to me, has done to me, is still doing to me. The things she wanted to do. Her face was fading, and she looked sadly at the wall across from her. I couldn't see what she was staring at, and I realized that from the door, you couldn't see the other wall. It was obstructed by another wall that came out from the doorway. I never really thought about it till then. Was she actually looking at something? Why am I here? She laughed bitterly. His punishment is simply seeing the truth and finally admitting he was wrong. I used to feel sympathy for him, as absurd as it is. I used to care that seeing me caused him such great pain, till I realized that that pain was just his pride. I'm here because when I look away, they hurt me. I have to watch him and he has to watch me. I don't care anymore. Sitting here, I gave up, but I can't leave until he admits he was wrong. I didn't want to say anything to anyone because I knew his image mattered so much to him. Like I said, I was a fool and still felt sympathy for him, even after what he did. I didn't want him to be hurt, and I guess that some part of me still doesn't. But I can't care anymore. I want what I've always wanted. I want to get away from him. I want to sit down somewhere and just disappear. But I still can't. I'm just a tool. I'm still just shit in her eyes. If her poor precious son has to sit in some kind of punishment, then so must I. Well, I don't care what you do with this story. I just wanted someone to know I was here. I was getting desperate. What do you do when a god hates you so much? I could try committing suicide, but I'd just be born again, and it would happen all again. I guess it's somewhat comforting at least, just to know that someone knows. I don't feel so alone then. Well, the mother promised me that you would believe me. I guess it's her small kindness to me. Something to bargain to make me stay. Not that it matters. I mean, I'd have to stay anyway. Unwillingly, my feet began to shuffle forward, just enough that I'd be able to look around the corner and see what she was staring at. What I saw was truly horrific, but it didn't affect me at first. There, in the corner, hidden from view by the other wall, was a hunched figure. It looked like those pictures of Jesus that you always see, but he was warped and twisted, his features pulled back into a disfigured and silent scream. His limbs and neck were bent at strange angles, and they were longer than they should have been. I got the feeling that this thing wanted to charge at me, to harm me, but it was being held still. Panic began to set in, but I couldn't move or look away. Not until she spoke again. "Oh, he looks better than he used to," she whispered. It was like her voice broke the ropes that were binding me, and I fled the room. I'm not sure if I even locked the door. I left early that night, saying that I wasn't feeling well, and I never went back. I've done everything I can to forget what happened that night, because my mind simply can't handle the information. But tonight I felt I needed to share it, and so I have. I can still see that frail woman sitting in her room, doomed to wait for that thing to repent, I guess. I want to help her. I'm driven to help her. It's like sharing this story. I don't know. Maybe I'm just losing it. But I had to write this. I had to get it out there. The empty road seemed to stretch for eternity. It was a monotonous path, a typical highway, but unsettlingly empty this particular night. Of course, for a man who had nothing left in his life, it didn't matter. Steve tried to keep himself from thinking about his life. He had been tired, a frustrated man with a respectable but boring job. He hated everything about his workplace. Commercial stuff was never meant for him. This was a man meant to achieve more than calling people on a regular basis and trying to interest them in the stock market, only to have himself abruptly hung up on, or much worse, having his time wasted. After around 12 mind-numbing hours, he came home to an empty apartment, occupied by fancy-looking cheap decor. His wife was always thinking about saving up, always so tight when it came to spending money. "Jesus, Janie, you and I earn enough. Come on, we can afford this," Steve said to his wife. It was an old memory now, a couple of years back. Steve had taken a liking to this particular sofa. It had the most comfortable seats and a delightful little bounce once you sat in it. It was a glorious shade of yellow, which also happened to be Janie's favorite color, at least her first favorite color. Yellow, red, green, and then purple, Steve chuckled as he remembered. Oh, come on, hon. There are tons of sofas out there like this. I bet we could save at least a few $100 if we go somewhere else. The memory was so clear in his mind, he almost felt the words dance around him. Her thoughts made him smile. Oh, she was a sweet woman. She had her quirks, but she was sweet. That's why he'd loved her, and then eventually married her. But that was before. That was the Janie he loved. That Janie was long gone, and instead, there was someone else he shared his bed with now. It wasn't always like that, but things change. People change, and sometimes for the worse. At first, Steve had reasoned her irritability was due to her frequent night shifts at the hospital. She'd come home tired and sleep all day. They hardly talked then. It was a little hard at first, but Steve got used to it. As time progressed, Janie had started to act dull every day. She was always tired and frequently had bursts of anger, always directed towards him. Even for the smallest things that went wrong, she began to curse at him and curse their marriage. This was especially upsetting for Steve, and over time, he started to avoid any interactions with her. It was not out of anger or of his own will. He just felt scared. He was afraid of making her angry, yet it seemed to be inevitable. Eventually, Steve had started to lash out too. Every offensive comment she made out of her anger, well, it angered Steve even worse. He began to yell at her, raising his voice like he hadn't in years, and that he'd never expected that he would ever have to again. The road seemed to stretch on forever, but he didn't care much. His thoughts kept him company. Those in the briefcase he carried with him. The music from the radio was low, just there to conceal the emptiness. Oh, he hated that feeling. It reminded him of the time Janie had started to completely avoid him. She seemed to be repulsed by his very being, not even looking over in his direction at times. Her vocabulary of colorful insults started to water down, and eventually it just consisted of and okay. He didn't know what had gone wrong. Had he not been spending enough time with her? Had he not been gifting her enough? Yes, maybe that was it. He should take her out to a nice dinner and buy her gifts. That would probably do something. It always seemed to work in the movies, and that's how their love had been. Movie love. At least, before Janie changed. As Steve's red Camry made its way through the highway, he passed through a gas station. He kept on going. He didn't need gas, not for a while, and when he would, he'd find another. So right now, he had to just keep going. Parked next to the gas station was a police car, inside which sat Officer Berg and his partner and his junior, Officer Floyd. They each had a cup of warm coffee, sipping on it between exchanging words. Berg had taken quite a liking to Floyd. The young man reminded him of himself in his own rookie days, lazy but a good learner. Maybe the reason she felt like that was because of the punch he took on her face. You should have seen it. Oh, it was crazy. All the guys just jumped at the chance to beat the hell out of that guy. If I wasn't there, he probably would have been freaking killed, Floyd said, sipping his coffee. Jesus Christ, kid. Who the hell are you lying to? I've been in this line of work long before you were at... Yeah, okay. Spare me that, old man. Someone did definitely punch him hard. Sure, kid. Quiet night, isn't it? Do you ever wonder how meaningful life can be? You truly appreciate it in slow moments like these. Maybe at your age I will. Right now, I don't give much of a shit about anything, to be honest. So just spare me all that enlightenment artsy crap. There was an awkward silence. It made Floyd feel a little guilty. Man, sorry if I came out as rude. It's alright, kid. Fuck you. The officers shared a hearty chuckle as the night went on, and they continued sipping their drinks. Steve slammed his fists on the steering wheel as he kept going. All those memories hurt to remember. The dinner, he recalled, didn't happen at all. Janie claimed to have a headache and lay in bed all night, just scrolling through her phone. After dumping the bouquet of yellow and red flowers, God knows what kind they were, he'd merely mentioned yellow and red to the lady at the shop. He walked to the pub and called Janie to let her know he'd be out all night. He decided to drink himself to sleep that night. He didn't know where he would end up, but at this point he would gladly go to bed on a train track with a billion little spiders crawling underneath him, then go home and sleep. There was also that. Janie didn't even sleep in the same bed anymore. She would much rather prefer the couch or go work an extra shift than lay next to him. She'd also started to lock the doors when she changed or had a shower, which was just a minor inconvenience as compared to everything else at this point. That night he stumbled to his friend's place, drunk and stumbling. Glenn was single, and he was the last person who would comfort him, but he was the only friend he had who would let him stay. Divorce her. That's all the advice he ever got. But how could he? He still loved her. Oh, fuck this. Fuck all this. Steve let out a loud yell. Oh, fuck you. Fuck all of you. He then desperately reached for the radio, which he turned up a little louder. And now we will present you with some of the most romantic. He switched the channel. That was the last thing he wanted to hear. The mixed feelings he had for her already plagued him as it is. He didn't want to listen to the news either, so he kept changing the channel until he heard the sound of a man laughing through the radio. The laugh was wild, and it echoed and sounded as if it was two laughs coming out at once. It was a deeper voice with an audible rasp, and it felt strangely terrifying as well as soothing at the same time. The mixture of emotions he felt now annoyed him, and he spoke out softly. Go ahead, laugh at me. Go on, keep at it, he said to the voice on the radio. The laugh went on for another second, then abruptly paused. This was a weird coincidence, nothing more. Oh, Steve, but it is hilarious, isn't it? How everything turned out to be? The voice on the radio said back. Steve was so shocked, he stopped his car abruptly, and his tires skidded a little, causing the car behind him to drift sideways and almost off the road. Steve heard nothing for a moment, but then, while the man from the other car stopped and struggled to move out of his seatbelt, the voice spoke again. Drive. Drive. The voice began to ring over and over, like a corrupted radio. As the man reached Steve's window, Steve sped off in a hurry. There wasn't even a glance in the man's direction, which offended him a little. In his rage, he got his phone out, and while he thanked God for being unharmed, with shaky fingers, he dialed the police. 23152. Possible drunk driving in progress. Any units in that area, please copy. This is Officer Burke. I copy. The transmission had left Burke excited. It always did. It seemed like another chance to teach his junior something. Like a father and son at work in the garage. Okay, kid. You ready for some action? Hell yeah, man, Floyd replied, a hint of sarcasm looming in his tone, but Burke didn't mind. Their car moved out of the gas station, and Burke turned on the sirens as Floyd started to drive. Hey, say something. The voice on the radio had gone silent for a moment, leaving Steve all alone in that dreaded silence. Steve was about to turn the radio off when the man spoke out again. "Oh, Steve, such an impatient man, aren't you? Do you think that's why Janie cheated on you? Fuck you. You hear me? Fuck you. You're not even real. I'm going crazy. I'm losing my mind, and that's it." Even though he begged for a response, he was regretting it now. These words were digging deep into his sanity and clawing at it. "I'm not real. Oh, you're smarter than that. You know I'm real. Oh, I'm more real than that kiss your wife shared with... What's his name again? Oh, yes. Benjamin, was it?" There was so much pleasure in his voice. It was sickening. Steve had more anger in him than fear at this point. "What are you gonna do, Steve? I love you, Steve. You are the only man who understands me." The voice had mimicked Janie so well. For a moment there, Steve thought she'd spoken them herself. "Please, stop." Steve could only muster a whimper. Maybe you still care. Am I wrong?" I do love her. I love her so much." "And what is it you want most right now?" The sounds of police sirens interrupted the little moment of silence in the car, and Steve stepped on the gas. "You know you'll always suffer, Steve. Pain will follow you like a shadow." "Oh, fuck me, Benjamin. Oh, yeah. Do it right, Doc." It mimicked her voice again. It was so perfect and so lifelike, it made Steve's gut turn. This made Steve snap. He abruptly turned his car around and drove off the road and into the dirt beside it. His car almost tipped over the side, and lucky for him, it didn't. There was damage from the sudden jump, and Steve knew he'd hurt his back. However, his rage masked the pain, and he didn't care. "Oh, fuck you. That was so long ago. She never had an affair with him, not while we were married. Stop messing around with my head, whatever you are." Steve was fuming with rage now. He wanted to smash the radio to pieces, but he restrained himself. He wanted to hear. "Oh, how she left him in favor of a young man with a more promising career. Broke her heart the same way as yours is right now." Steve felt anger, replaced with fear. There was now a slow realization, but he didn't fully accept the truth, choosing instead to remain in denial. "What do you mean?" he said, stuttering, like the same way he did when he was a scared little schoolboy. "Oh, you see, my dear friend, memory is the worst torture device. It can drive a person mad. All they need is someone to give it to them." The voice began to chuckle a little, then burst out into a full laugh. It laughed louder and louder. "Oh, you son of a bitch." Steve walked out of the car and opened its trunk. He picked up the shovel he'd stored in there and the gun he'd also brought along. He began his walk back, but was interrupted. "Sir, put your weapons down. State police," Floyd said loudly, in an attempt to impress his superior, and turned back to Burke and winked. "Sir, are you okay?" Steve ignored it and walked away from the car and dug his shovel in the ground and started to dig. "I'm sorry, Janie. I'm so sorry. I'm coming to be with you." The laughter in the radio continued. Steve didn't care anymore. He just kept digging. "What the fuck is wrong with this guy, huh?" Floyd asked Burke. "Let me talk to him. Stay back." "I got this," Floyd said in his cockiness, walking down towards Steve, who kept digging, and then walking back towards the car, his eyes focused on the ground, his lips moving while he murmured to himself. Floyd pointed his gun at Steve. "Get on the fucking ground." Steve then reached into his jacket pocket, and this sent Floyd into a panic. He shot Steve right over the elbow, sending him down into the dirt. Burke cussed and radioed for backup. Meanwhile, Floyd went to check on the bleeding Steve, who was bleeding from the shoulder, all the while muttering the same thing over and over. "I'm sorry, Janie. I'm coming. I'm sorry, Janie." "What?" Floyd asked, and then for a moment, Steve looked Floyd right into his eyes, and then shot him right through the pocket of his jacket, right in the head, sending him down to the ground, the life moving out of him like the smoke from his open skull. Steve struggled to stand up and kept murmuring, while Burke tried to charge at him from the road, just falling down in the dirt instead. Steve just fired at Burke casually, luckily missing him completely and not killing him, like he'd intended to, but he didn't care. Steve reached for the trunk and pulled out the lifeless corpse of Janie, completely naked, wrapped in a white towel. She looked so peaceful, like an angel. He remembered the first time they'd made love. It was awkward but magical. Right on the hood of his car under the blanket of the stars. And funnily enough, it was a night just like this. He placed her in the hole he'd dug for her and removed his jacket, putting it around her lifeless body and then reaching in for a kiss. Their lips touched. Steve didn't care. He was going to be with her again. Burke pointed his gun at Steve, warning him again, but Steve instead looked at Burke, a strange, tranquil smile on his face, as he raised the gun to his head and shot himself through the skull once. He fell down at Burke's feet instead of his back, and into the hole with Janie's lifeless corpse. Burke could see the man still smiling, while blood dripped down the side of his head from his temples. He was at peace as the bullet hit him, and that last look was the only thing remaining on him now. To Burke, this just showed the man's insanity. He heard the police sirens and withdrew his gun. It would be an offense to shoot the man again, no matter how enraged he was. He was sent off in an ambulance to spend the rest of the night, and possibly a few days, in the hospital, while the other officers on the scene inspected the madness that had unfolded here. 3 bodies, 1 confirmed murder, 1 possible murder, and 1 confirmed suicide. Their suspect carried nothing but a .22 pistol and a shovel, from what was gathered. The car was empty, besides a few strands of hair from what was presumed to be the body of the female victim. The radio was turned to loud, and for some reason, it had rested on nothing but static.
I can't remember. The other car came out of nowhere. Connor will relay mechanically in his disassociated state, stitching together his fragmented memories for the police report after the accident. He will stare at the scene of the crash, glancing at each piece of scattered shrapnel, reflecting his own broken thoughts. The lights from the cruisers, ambulances, and nosy rubberneckers will cause his head to throb, adding to the chaos of his universe. Eventually, the shock will pass, and he will collapse to his knees on the cold pavement in agony, grief overwhelming him. One vision will burn into his psyche, silencing the growing cacophony of his own thoughts. A seemingly innocuous item, which will fester in the back of his mind until he ends his own life many years later. A bright, yellow bumper sticker. Earlier that evening, Connor was enjoying a late, quiet autumn drive with his wife Megan down a lonely residential road. He was, admittedly, dizzy from the night's festivities, out with their mutual friends, but he insisted he was sober enough to take the wheel. Despite his assurances, he pressed the accelerator a bit harder than usual, hoping to make it home before any cops had a chance to complicate his evening. The couple sat in silence, entwining their hands between them, falling under the spell of the rhythmic strobe of passing streetlights. Megan kept her eyes trained out her window at the changing leaves, squeezing her spouse's hand intermittently. Connor ogled her with a lazy, drunk smile on his face. Turning back to the road, he snapped out of his hypnotic state and slammed on the brakes in response to the quickly approaching taillights, which threatened a meeting with the front of their own car. "Jesus!" Connor spat as he and his wife lurched forward. "Where the hell did this joker come from?" he cried aloud. He hadn't noticed any car ahead of them when he looked at the road only seconds before. A feeling of anger rose within him as his pleasant evening drive was interrupted by overcautiousness. "Honey, you need to relax. You were going too fast," Megan said matter-of-factly. "Yeah, well, this idiot is going slower than 30. There's nobody around. Speed up!" Connor shouted, as if the newcomers could hear him. The driver ahead showed no signs of hearing his demand and continued to cruise at a glacial pace. Connor took note of the baby on board sticker on the bumper, a bumper which had caved in, most likely from another car slamming into its slow backside. He rolled his eyes, knowing his car had the same sticker on its bumper. Earlier he protested putting it on the car he shared with his wife Megan, but she had been adamant about it. "Why would you want to advertise having a kid, especially with potential kidnappers everywhere?" Connor reasoned, but Megan insisted other motorists would drive more carefully around them, knowing they had a child in the car. Connor felt the collapsed bumper of the other car as evidence to the contrary. He kept this thought to himself. Connor leaned on the horn and flashed his high beams. As he did so, he noticed there was a passenger in the car. The two figures faced ahead, neither turning in their seat to acknowledge the noisy car behind them. They didn't pull over to the side. Instead, they continued at their leisurely speed. "Seriously? They're going to pretend we're not here? Come on!" Connor honked a few more times, but there was still no reaction from the other car. He took their indifference as insolence, which ignited his anger into rage. "You're getting angry for no reason," Megan said coolly. "We need to let the babysitter go. I'm not paying him for an extra hour." White-knuckling the steering wheel, Connor swerved to the oncoming lane, and before he could floor the accelerator, the car ahead merged into the other lane swiftly along with them. The car remained in front of Connor and his wife, blocking their advance. Seething, Connor yelled, "What the fuck is this guy's problem?" It's obviously some stupid kids messing with us. Let's just stay calm and not give them the satisfaction of riling us up. Forget the babysitter. We'll be home shortly," Megan soothed. Connor wasn't having it. Now he was hell-bent on either passing the pair in front of them or cornering them and beating their asses, the liquor fueling his bravado. He maneuvered back to the right lane, but the car matched his path exactly. The ease of their maneuvers confirmed Connor's suspicions that the occupants of the car had harassed other drivers before. Wanting to get away from the nuisance, Connor tried to think of another way to bypass the other car. Unfortunately, the road on which they traveled didn't branch off anywhere to get around the offending vehicle. Their only chance was at the end of the road, where there was a red light for a T intersection. However, that light was still a few miles away, and Connor's patience was wearing thin as the other car continued its deceleration. Determined to circumvent the sluggish car, Connor tried one more ploy. This time he swung to the left, cut short and swung back to the right, hoping the other car would be caught off guard. They weren't. Instead, the other car seamlessly matched Connor's position, shifting left, then abruptly changing course back to the right lane. The way the other car matched their position struck Connor as odd. He hadn't noticed it before, but there was no hesitation from the other car, no split-second pause to consider Connor's next play. Their movements weren't that of a copycat. Rather, it was like they knew what he was going to do. Connor's brief feelings of confusion were overcome by his feelings of anger, and he responded to the other car's tricks in the most childish way he knew, and quickly flipped them the middle finger. He watched the shadowy figure driving the other car do the same. Again, there was no hesitation as the other driver's hand shot up along with Connor's. Wanting to test a theory, Connor allowed his hand to linger in the air longer than necessary, waiting for the unknown driver to put his hand down, but instead, it stayed hovering in the air. Connor's anger subsided a bit. In its place, a sense of unease crept in. He unfolded his fingers, twisted his hand to present an open palm to the other car, and gave a small wave. Connor, eyes widened, gawked as the silhouetted hand of the other driver slowly formed an open palm, turned to face the windshield, and waved out to the empty road ahead of them. Every motion was in harmony with Connor's actions. This mild gesture sent a ripple of fear down Connor's spine. He yanked his hand back to the steering wheel and observed the other driver do the same. "Did you see that?" Connor flinched at the edge of panic in his voice. "You've been waving at the guy you've been bitching about for the last 10 minutes? Yeah, I was there for that." Sarcasm tinted her voice. "No, there's something weird going on." He couldn't take his eyes off the mysterious figure. "Oh, he's just messing with you." "No, I'm not sure what's going on, but it's as if he knows what I'm going to do." "I don't think we should be anywhere near this guy anymore." Connor's eyes darted around the empty road, hoping for some signs of life to provide help, or at least comfort, but it was only him, his wife, and the couple in the dented vehicle ahead of them. Megan noticed nothing, so Connor tried to push his worry aside, but he couldn't shake the feeling. They continued driving in silence. Connor's hands tightened their grip on the wheel, straining the skin along his knuckles. The tension increased with every passing minute, until the quiet was cut by the sound of Megan's phone ringing, which caused Connor to jump in his seat. Without turning, he felt her eyes on him, the same eyes she'd penetrate him with whenever he was overreacting. She reached into her bag and produced the phone. The phone pressed to her ear, and Connor gaped at the passenger of the other car, who was also putting something to their ear. He was certain now that he wasn't hallucinating everything. The anonymous pair were, somehow, mirroring Connor and his wife. Megan hung up and mentioned something about the babysitter, but Connor was too engrossed with the occupants in the other car to hear what she was saying. Fear began to sink in, thinking about whoever or whatever was in the other car. Both cars drove slowly for the remaining few miles of the road. A million things ran through Connor's mind. He worried that the pair in the other car were sociopaths, part of a cult, possibly gang members, and that him and his wife were involved in some unnerving gang initiation. He wanted to turn around, but that would mean driving miles back the way they came, and he was afraid the shady couple would turn to follow them, and that was worse than having them lead. Mercifully, they came around a bend which brought them to the red light at the T intersection. Both cars stopped to wait for the light to change. When the light slipped to green, nothing happened. Connor and Megan waited for the other car's turn signal, but it never came. The two shadows stared ahead at the empty intersection, idling at the light, as if to dare Connor to give way first. He gnawed on his cheek, hoping the other couple would just speed off, and that whatever was going on was just some horrible, practical joke. But they didn't budge. "Why aren't they moving? The light's green," Megan asked her husband, confused. A few more seconds of the standoff, and Connor steeled himself to put a stop to whatever it was the dark couple was trying to do. Connor cautiously stretched a hand into the back seat, fearing he might spook the shadow couple if he moved too quickly, and snatched the ice scraper from the floor. It was a poor excuse for a weapon, but he needed a defense in case the other couple was dangerous, and with every second that passed, Connor became more convinced that they were. "Megs, I need you to stay in the car. Make sure you have 911 dialed on your phone, and get into the driver's seat. In case something goes wrong, I want you to be out of here and calling them," Connor implored. "Connor, you're overreacting." She tried to calm him down, but she was visibly nervous. "Maybe so, but still, get into the driver's seat and put the car in reverse so you're ready to take off." She recognized the seriousness in his face and nodded. Connor took a deep breath to prepare for whatever he was going to face, and opened the car door. He was surprised that nothing stirred within the other car. He stepped out into the cool night air, and his wife slid into his seat. She closed the door behind him and locked it. Warily, Connor shuffled toward the driver's side of the sinister car and raised the ice scraper, clutching it tightly in both hands. His heart knocked against his ribcage. He caught an incomplete view of the front of their car, but noted that it was similarly devastated as the back of the vehicle. He licked his lips, attempting to get strength into his voice, and barked to the occupants in the dented car. "I'm not sure what your problem is, but get the hell away from..." Suddenly, the car accelerated and shot across the intersection. Instead of turning, it plowed through the guardrail along the intersection. The sound of screeching metal on metal punctured through the night, and Connor watched the savage bumper and comical sticker of the other car disappear and plummet 100 feet into the vegetation below. Dumbfounded, Connor froze mid-step. A few seconds of his wife shrieking finally coaxed him back from his shock. "Megs, call the police right now. Tell them someone drove off the road and may need help." He whipped his head to see her nod in compliance, but she was shaking terribly. The ice scraper lowered, and Connor ambled across the intersection. He loitered near the part of the barrier still intact. He hesitated before inspecting the scene, not wanting to see body parts or any mess that was down there. He breathed deep and peered over the cliff. There was nothing. Connor's eyebrows furrowed in confusion. He squinted harder to scrutinize the dark underbrush, but he could discern nothing. There was no glow from the taillights, no glint of moonlight on the car's surface, and no sound of a constant blaring horn. The barrier was torn through, evidence that an object had crashed through it. But that object had somehow disappeared. Without glancing back, Connor called over his shoulder. "Megs, the car's gone." "What?" she shouted back. "There's no car." Connor spun around in time to witness an enormous semi-truck slam into the back of their car. Like a rocket, their little sedan, with his wife inside, bolted across the road. The gust of wind created by the car's speed was enough to blow him back and steal the air from his lungs. His eyes met his wife's terrified gaze for a heartbeat, her glossy green eyes wide and fearful. Then she disappeared over the edge. A moment of disbelief passed. Then Connor roared Megan's name. He stalled, reluctant to look over the edge again. He had a small glimmer of hope that once again nothing would be at the bottom of the cliff. He agonizingly dragged his gaze back to the depths, and this time a car lay there in ruin. A crushed metallic heap at the bottom of the dark pit. Before he fell into shock, unable to think coherently. Before the police arrived too late to save his wife. Connor noticed one thing: the unmistakable "baby on board" sticker, which clung to the remnants of the collapsed bumper on the back of their car. It was unsettling to him how familiar that bumper seemed.
Wow. A lot to take in from that one, isn't there? Not a particularly religious person myself, but as someone who believes in science, I know the fact we definitely don't know everything that we could, and there's a lot more out there for us to learn and to absorb as a species, and we've got a long way to go. Wow, what a story. Tell me what you think. Thoughts, feelings, anything else you want to write in the comment section below the video. I'll definitely be joining in the discussion for this one. Wow, really was a lot to think about. Well, that's enough for your Friday evening's entertainment. I'll be back again very soon. Podcast went up last night. It was a good one. It seems to be very popular. So I'll link to that in the community tab. Not one to miss, I don't think. And I'll be back here again probably on Sunday night. If there's anything you want me to read, any genre of story that I haven't done for a while, please let me know, and I'll try and get round to it on Sunday. Till then, my dear friends, very, very sweet dreams, and bye-bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. Really means a lot to me and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you want me to read one that you've written. Well, hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams, and bye-bye.